Welcome to the Pitbull Patti Show. I'm your host, Patti Stuckler. We're keeping it real here with straight talk and sharing true stories that will inspire you to change your life. Are you ready for this? Because here we go. I have a really special guest today. He has such an amazing spirit and a love of music that he wants to share with the world. He's a talented musician and a songwriter. He's a speaker and author and been interviewed on over 80 radio stations across the country promoting the value of music in therapy and in one's overall happiness. His book, 88 Plus Ways Music Can Change Your Life, features over 100 inspirational music-related stories from around the world and includes many celebrity stories. He's the co-founder of the nonprofit organization Keep Music Alive that helps bring music to school-age children. It's my honor and privilege to introduce Vincent James. How are you, Vincent?
Very good, Patti. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, so happy to have you on here. I'm so excited about this topic. I'm really curious on a couple of things I want to ask you about. But before I get into kind of the music and what you do with your organization, I was looking at, just some of your social media, and I know you're from Philly. So I was thinking about Philadelphia and thinking about kind of like, it looks like you grew up in Philly, right?
I grew up in the suburb of Philly, yes. I actually grew up 0 feet from where I'm at.
Oh, my goodness.
Living in the house I grew up in.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. Well, I think about Philadelphia and I think about a couple things. Okay, cheesesteaks, of course. Everybody thinks about cheesesteaks. Jason Worth, who, of course, the Nationals, we got Jason Worth from the Phillies.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Hey, he's one of my favorite players. I know he's been around a while, so he's not one of the young bucks, but I love Jason Worth. So I'm very happy to have him from the Phillies. But I also think about the Phillies fans, oh my God, have such a horrible reputation. I hate to say it, but you know what I'm going to say because I know you've heard this. You have to have. If you're from Philly, you've got to have heard this before. But I know there's this story, and a true story, about the Phillies fans. Well, I should say Eagles. The Eagles fans. The Eagles were playing Vikings in 1968, and the fans were so terrible that they literally pelted Santa Claus at halftime with snowballs. And you know that's a true story. I had to familiarize myself again with it because I'd heard it before and thought, wow, how do you? Really, the Phillies fans really do have quite the reputation. I mean, who does that to Santa Claus?
Well, I would like to think that we've come a little bit further since then, and maybe a little more civilized. I hope.
Yeah, it's all on your shoulders. I just want to tell you that, Vincent.
Thank
it's
you.
up to you to
Weighing me
redeem.
down, Patti.
Yeah, totally up to you to redeem the reputation of the Phillies.
I'm gonna get right on that.
Okay, you have your work cut out for you, I think.
I do.
Okay, well, I want to ask you, before I really start asking you about your organization, what is, if you are on an island and for the rest of your life, a deserted island, and you could hear one musician, one artist, one band, what would that be? The rest of your life. Now, mind you, the rest of your life. What would it be?
All right. I would say I would like to have every record that Phil Collins ever played on.
Very cool.
That includes all the old Genesis, newer Genesis, all the solo records, the movie soundtracks he did, everything. I think that would hold me over for a couple weeks and then the rest of forever.
And then it'd be like, I think in North Korea, they isn't it North Korea or somewhere that they play like rock music? I mean, like hard rock music to like prisoners. Have you ever heard that before?
I've heard stories of different countries using music as somewhat of a weapon, yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. But Phil Collins, that'd be a good one. Well, how did you get started in music? Where did your love of music start?
Let's see, way back in elementary school. I can't remember when I first actually started liking music. I guess I can't remember ever not liking music. But in the 4th grade, we had the choice in school where we could learn to play an instrument. So I came home one day and asked my parents, hey, I'd really love to play the guitar. And they're like, no. So I came back the next day. Hey, what about the drums? I'd love to play the drums. And they said, no, even louder. So third time's a charm. I came back and said, how about the trombone? And they're like, sold. So I played trombone in all the different, concert band, marching band, jazz band, all through high school. So that was one thing that was constant through my schooling years. And then probably around the sixth grade, my mom had always wanted to play the piano, but she had never had the opportunity. So she talked my dad into getting a piano. So they brought a piano into the house so she could take lessons. And I was drawn to that piano like, a bead of honey. I'm just like, just started messing around with the keys and like, when can I start taking lessons? So I started probably for about 3, 4 years. I took classical piano, playing Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, all those different great classical artists. But then probably around the seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade, I kind of got hooked on pop music. The radio kind of drew me in to, whether it was, believe it or not, back then I was into Led Zeppelin, Kiss, and hard stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But even on the other side, I was also into John Denver, the Carpenters, and Bread. So I just kind of like,
awesome.
For different moods, different feelings, I was really into all different styles of music. And that's when I started, playing guitar actually on my own and took a few lessons and, playing in bands and starting to write songs and just have never really stopped since then.
That's so great. When I think about it, I mean, I actually grew up on Led Zeppelin. In fact, in my bedroom, I had this huge Led Zeppelin. It wasn't a poster. It was actually like a cloth poster. It was huge. And it was, from one of the albums, Led Zeppelin albums. I love Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. I've seen them. In fact, I saw them with Angus Young playing not too long ago, a few months ago, and I've seen lots of AC/DC cover bands. I love hard rock, but I also love Bread. Guess Who? Oh my gosh, yeah, a lot. Elton John, all those. And don't you think it's interesting? You kind of know how old somebody is by like their music, right?
It pretty much narrows it down, what decade you're talking about.
Definitely. Although I love Maroon 5, I love a lot of I love dance music. I love anything I can dance to. So I actually like a lot of music now, So I like a lot of things. The only thing I really haven't gotten into is country too much, or classical.
Right. Yeah, I love most styles of music as well. I mean, I haven't listened to much country, but sometimes like if I'm on the road, traveling to Florida or to Nashville, you're jumping from city to city and you're just hitting scan on the stations. And by doing that, you start to discover some pretty good country songs. You're like, wow, I kind of like that. Whereas
Well,
before I never would have thought about it.
yeah, I really like Shania Twain. I mean, there is some country definitely I like. And in fact, I just recently went to a country bar with a couple of friends. That was not my choice.
Oh, come on, we all know that you're the one that took them there.
Yeah, I wanted to go to the bar, but I didn't want to go to the country bar. I was like, no, let's go somewhere we can dance and have a good time. It was a whole group of women, and anyway, we went to this country bar, and I was surprised how many songs I actually knew. So there's obviously a lot of crossover.
Yeah. Some of the really great country songs have crossed over to the pop, where you and I would have heard them on other stations.
Yeah, definitely. So is that so? So obviously, if you grew up playing a lot of classical, it sounds like, was especially in the piano, then how did that switch over? Did you switch over at some point to just a lot of different genres, or?
Yeah, I think when I was probably about 13, 14 is when I started listening more to the radio and wanting to play, pop songs. And I think probably the classical training probably is what helped me really appreciate groups like Genesis, Kansas, where there was a lot of more intricate musicianship going on there than your typical 3/4 chord. There's a lot of stuff going on in those songs. And probably my classical training really helped me, lended me to appreciate that more.
Yeah, it's interesting because I used to work at the Capitol Center. I don't know if you're familiar with what the Capitol Center was, but it was you could go watch concerts. It since has been torn down, but when I was like right out of high school, I worked there and I sold tickets. So I used to go see a lot of concerts like Prince and Madonna and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was really cool. And Rush and Black Sabbath, you name it, in the 80s. So it was very cool to go, like after I'd get done selling the tickets, I would go down and we we can watch like the second half, basically, of
Right.
most concerts. I always like the show, like Rush. I'm sure. I'm guessing that you probably would appreciate Rush. With just the three musicians and
Oh,
their,
absolutely.
yeah.
They were phenomenal.
But I always like the theatrics of the show. Like I watched, I saw Prince with Purple Rain, that album, and he had literally the bathtub and this like what looked like electric lights coming down, the bathtub, and he was just all over the place on top of his piano. He was
Oh, wow.
he was such a stage presence. And same thing, of course, with Madonna. So, I guess there's kind of that fine. I like both. I want to hear great musicians, but at the same time, I want a show. Which
Sure, absolutely. The show just adds to the music and makes it more of an experience. I can remember, I didn't go to a lot of concerts early on, but I remember I saw Queen, back in the early days. It was probably around 1977. And this is before the album that had We Will Rock You hit the radio. They had the whole crown thing where the crown came down and all that, which was really cool. But then they started the show, you hear this boom, boom, cha, boom, boom, cha, and the whole stadium is shaking.
oh my
I'm like,
God.
what the heck is that? Because it hadn't been on the radio yet, and you had no idea. And then they go into it. It was just, to me, that made a really huge impression because I'll never forget it. Just the feeling of the whole stadium, the whole arena shaking to that, and not knowing what it was, and then realizing later, oh wow, that's on their new album coming out.
Wow, that is so cool. In fact, Freddie Mercury, right? That's what a
One of a
performer,
kind.
and what a singer, what a range he had.
Yes.
God, he could sing. And it makes me think when you're talking about that kind of electricity. I think Journey had that always had that same kind of. People still to this day, you can go hear Journey songs at the end of, whatever it is, you can hear something
Right.
that people start belting it out. They just, it's a band that kind of resonates with people.
Iconic.
Yeah,
The songs
exactly.
and Steve Perry's voice are iconic.
Yeah, so cool. And of course, they have the guy from the Philippines. Now I don't know his name, but he sure does a great job. I've
Yeah, he
seen
does a
him.
great job of covering the songs, which is very difficult. I can't sing those songs.
Oh,
There's just
sure,
no
sure you
way.
can. You can try, like the
Yeah,
rest of
I
us,
can
right?
try, but you wouldn't want to hear it.
Well, I know you gave a TEDx talk, and
Uh-huh.
I'm so curious to ask you about that because I know it was titled Three Trends That Are Killing the Future of Music. Can
Right.
you share with us a little about that?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, you know, probably a few years ago, about 3, 4 years ago, before we started our whole Keep Music Alive mission that we do, what I started to notice was three things going on. The first was, the music and arts education cuts that are happening in many areas of the country. I understand budgets constrict and things have to be cut, and unfortunately, music and arts are often, in the crossfires. And, what they're learning from research is just how important music education really is for kids and how it parlays them into being successful in all the other subjects that the schools are trying to, excel in. So that was one of the items of the three trends. Another one was, the whole technology thing with streaming. I mean, when we grew up, if we wanted to hear a song that we liked over and over again, well, what did we do? We had to go to the store, we had to buy the 45 or the cassette and bring it home. And then we could play it over and over and over and over and over again. But we had to part with something of value to do that, whether it was, babysitting money, grass cutting money, allowance money, whatever it was. But kids today, including my own, they just sit there on Spotify, YouTube, or whatever, and just play the same. They can play any song they want, whenever they want, wherever they want, as much as they want, and they're not parting with anything of any value. So the value of music I see is going down, because I don't see kids growing up today really appreciating the value of what went into that music. They enjoy it, sure, but they didn't have to part with anything of value to enjoy it the way they do today. So that was the second one. And the third one had to do with live music. I mean, there are a lot of places you can hear live music, but I feel that there were a lot of places that used to always have live music. Used to go to hotels, and the bars and the lounges, there was always live music. And I just think a lot of that has gone by the wayside, where they're moving more towards, whether it's a DJ or whether it's just pre-recorded music, because they don't want to part with the funds for live music. And there's really no as you know yourself, there's no comparison to listening to someone in front of you playing an instrument live and getting that energy, that vibe off of them versus just hearing it, out of a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the same. So those are three trends that were part of the TEDx that I did that I just wanted to try to illuminate a little bit out there into the world and let people know.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I know it is. It's interesting when my kids were in high school. I can remember I was very surprised that they actually during like basketball games, they literally had this little group of kids, like maybe I don't know, 4 or 5 kids, and they would set up a band of their
Uh-huh.
own, like a little, like a little rock band at halftime, and they would play like and they would play Queen and stuff like that. They were really talented, and I just thought that was so cool that the
That's
school,
awesome.
yeah, I know that the school allowed them to do that instead of saying, oh, some liability issue or whatever reason that the schools never let people do things. But I
Right.
just thought that was so cool that they, so if they had more of that in every school, just giving a forum for them for
That's
the
that's
kids.
yeah, that's tremendous. I mean, that's just being creative. Other ways, schools can have music as part of school and extracurricular activities. Not always having to do the same thing that they've always done. That is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, I never thought about that until just now. I mean, I thought about it at the time that how cool that was. In fact, they would play. We are the champion. They would play all that kind of stuff. It was very appropriate for basketball games and sports competition and stuff like that.
Right.
So I remember thinking about it at the time, but now that you're talking about it, about the schools cutting music and really you don't see the live music as much, that'd be a cool way for people to showcase their talents.
Yeah, you're giving me some ideas, because I mean, whenever we hear ideas like this, it's ideas that we can help spread and share in other places to give people, ideas to they can maybe do it in their area. Because
Yeah.
collectively around the world, we all have different and great ideas, and if we share those ideas, we can learn and all benefit.
Yeah, well, that was Huntingtown High School in Huntingtown, Maryland. I don't know if they still are doing it because my kids are out of high school now, but they certainly were back then. Not that many years ago. So hopefully they're still doing it. So it's a cool thing to do. But well, tell me about your organization and tell us about your organization and what made you prompt it. What all do you do exactly with keep music alive?
Well, I think what really prompted it was, there's three things from the TEDx, before I even did the TEDx, those are the three things that kind of were circling in my mind. So my wife, Joanne, and I founded the organization Keep Music Alive about 3 years ago. And what we've done is we have launched two music holidays. One is Teach Music America Week, which is now becoming International Teach Music Week, where we encourage musicians and music schools everywhere to offer one free lesson to new students, kids or adults, with the idea of just trying to break the ice. If there's someone that's always really wanted to play an instrument but just never kind of, got the gumption to start or had someone offer or didn't have the money for a first lesson or whatever, just get them started. And then maybe, many of those people that start with that first lesson will continue on learning music, either whether it's from that same teacher or someone else. And the reason we do all this is because of the many benefits that music offers, the health benefits, the social benefits, uh, the educational benefits. So if we can get more people and kids and adults playing music, we feel that's a good thing. And then the other music holiday is Kids Music Day, and that one is in October. And that's where we partner with music schools and retail locations all around the country and starting, a few countries outside the US as well to hold different events and promotions, basically celebrating, exactly what those kids are doing in the high school gym, kids playing music, uh, whether it's in public, whether it's, in the community as part of a rock school, in their public school, wherever it is, just different activities that encourage and celebrate the fact that kids are playing music.
Yeah, it's my niece is playing the ukulele, which is kind of an interesting instrument. And in fact, at
Becoming
Thanksgiving,
very popular. Yes.
is it really? Because I
Yeah.
noticed at now that you were just talking about that at Thanksgiving, she brought her. She's like 14. Well, no, yeah, she's 14. She'll be turning 15 this month, and
Uh-huh.
she has this ukulele, and she at Thanksgiving when there was a whole bunch of family. I mean, a lot of family members, and she played and sang a song for us, and it was so cool. And I just that was such a neat thing, and I just love when kids are performing, really for their family, parents and so forth.
Right,
Neat.
yeah, no, we absolutely love that to see our kids and relatives, playing music. And the ukulele is a wonderful instrument that you can learn it pretty easily. It's very portable, obviously, it's so small, and you can take it around and play and sing. It's very easy to learn, popular songs or make up songs to sing.
Oh, really? Is that why you think it's, or is it just because some of the musicians are playing it? It's making it trending.
Well, I think it's both. The fact that they're seeing more people using it, some of the famous musicians using, and then they're also, it's not expensive to purchase. It's easy to learn how to play, and it's so small and portable. You can take it anywhere, and you can sing with it, and it projects really well. For such a small instrument, it actually makes a pretty big sound.
Yeah, it's very cool. In fact, when I was growing up, my mom played the piano, and then I took lessons as a kid, although I was never good at it. But and I took flute lessons too, and I'm no flutist. but
Come on now, you're holding up.
no, I definitely can't play either one now. But my mom used to. She had one of those player pianos, but it didn't. The playing part didn't work, but she could play herself. But it was one of those ones that the upright, ones that it was an old piano, but she used to play really well. And she used to, I can remember at Christmas times, at Christmas time, she would sing, and holidays, she would sing, and we would gather around, it's just kind of a magical. I mean, I'm telling you my music story, I guess, when I think about a fond memory of how music has touched my life, because I know, and I want to ask you about your book, and I think you're writing another one too. But I can tell you that is such a fond memory when I think about my mother playing and singing, and then a couple of my siblings and I would be hovering around the piano and singing with her. Let It Snow.
Right.
Songs like that.
Not too long ago, that was more common. I mean, back in the day, before TV, before radio, many houses had a piano, and that was where music was generated in the house. In
Hmm.
fact, the sheet music salesman would go door to door, town to town, selling sheet music because that's how you got new songs to play, was from the salesman coming to the door. But back in that day, so many families would celebrate music, whether it was for the holidays or other special gatherings by, someone in the family sitting there and playing and, singing, and the people around them singing. And it was a family activity, doing something together. Imagine that, right? In today's world with the cell phones and, the internet, it's just, and I think we really lost a lot of that. I love hearing that you had that experience.
Yeah, and we actually did have a TV. I have to say,
Well, I wasn't saying, I wasn't saying,
I'm not that old. We did. It only
no,
had three
but it
channels, I
reminds me of
think.
a time older.
No, no,
That's
I know
the
what you mean. In
problem.
fact, you think about the Victorian times. Oh yeah, absolutely. And earlier where people did played a lot more. And you think about bluegrass and
Right?
a lot of people just hanging out on the porch playing music, not just even hanging around a piano, but it is special. And you're right. It's so sad that we've kind of lost a lot of that. I think. But it's so cool with your book. Tell me about your book as far as some of the stories that you have in there. Can you share a story or two from your book?
Sure, sure, absolutely. So we have a book series that we started a couple years ago, and we are working on the second book. And the book is 88 plus ways music can change your life. And there's, inspirational music stories from all around the world, including a number of celebrities. And I'll start with a story. It's by a very famous drummer. His name is Simon Kirke, who was the drummer for Bad Company, still is, and they tour, and the band Free before that. And so Simon was doing a drum clinic over in the UK several years back, and he's up on stage, and he's in kind of like a big auditorium, and the lights are down. So he's up on stage, all the lights are on him. It's dark out there, so he's can't really see who's out there in the auditorium. And he's starting to play different drums and showing different techniques. And as he's doing it, he's starting to hear this clicking sound coming from somewhere, and he's not sure, is it coming from the left, from the right, out in the audience. He really can't tell. Uh, but he's a professional. He doesn't say anything about it. He just continues on with his planned different demonstrations that he's doing. And as he continues, again, the clicking keeps coming and going. And after a while, he's starting to actually get a little bit annoyed. Like, here I am up here doing this demonstration. And I think it was probably like a free thing he was doing, charity work. And, who's making that blasted noise? It's kind of like distracting, especially to a drummer. You hear this rhythmic thing going on and you're trying to do a rhythm thing. Would throw me the heck off. uh, but, he didn't say anything. He just kept doing his different demonstrations, pulling out different drums, different percussion instruments. And then finally at the end, the lights, the house lights go up. And for the very first time, he can see in the back of the room, there's a row of wheelchairs. And in the wheelchairs are a bunch of kids that are holding drumsticks, kids with muscular dystrophy that have been playing with him the whole time.
Oh.
His heart just about dropped out. He rushed back to the back of the auditorium. He knelt down and he held each one of their hands, shaking their hands, and thanked them for playing along with him. And I think, he was a changed man after that experience. You just never really know what's going on and why and how. But just
Wow.
to show how much that music, him being there doing that for them and them being able to play along, that's part of their therapy, to be able to hold drumsticks and to play along with music.
Wow. That is so cool. That is just amazing.
Yeah, I tear up every time I hear that story and tell that story.
Yeah, that is so special. I really, that, what a neat experience. Well, so you have a lot of stories like that in the book?
So there are stories that will make you laugh, stories that will make you really think, and there are stories like that that'll make you, go hunt for the Kleenex box. Uh,
Oh.
just a lot of different experiences. Most of them are from musicians, but there are some that are from people that aren't musicians, have never played an instrument, but they had a particular experience in life that really affected them that had to do with music that they wanted to share.
Well, it's interesting. I think for everybody, you hear a song, especially, a song that means something to you, and all of a sudden it brings you back, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever, to a moment in time or to a
Yes,
person. And it's like you get to relive it.
music is a magical time machine.
It really is very special, creates a lot of emotion.
Yes.
I know every birthday of my son and my daughter, I always send them on their birthdays. One of my favorite songs is by the Carpenters, "Close to You," and I
Oh,
and I send that to them now electronically, by text.
okay.
I'll send them the YouTube version where they're in this 1970s clothes, the Carpenters.
Right, right.
But it talks about on the day that you were born. You know how the lyrics go, and so
I love that.
so I send that to them every birthday. It's so
Absolutely.
funny. Yeah, and now your wife, I know Joanne. She's is she the co-founder with you with the
Yeah, she's a
organization?
co-founder, co-author, and not almost none of this would have happened without her help. It's really a team effort because it's been a lot of work. For the first book, we actually reached out to over 6,000 musicians around the world to get all the stories that we got.
Wow.
It was definitely a large undertaking.
And now you're getting ready to write a second, or you are in the
Yeah,
process?
yeah, we're in the process of putting together a second book, so we're looking for, inspirational music stories and quotes. If any of your listeners, would like to submit a story for possible inclusion, we would love to hear from them.
Okay, awesome. Well, before I've got a couple more questions I want to ask you, and then I want to make sure I have the information that you can give to where people can find you and reach you. Um, but I always like to ask, what's the best advice anybody's ever given you, Vincent?
Hmm. The best advice that anyone's ever given me. Hmm. You got me thinking. Whatever it was, I probably didn't follow it. That's the problem. I've gotten a lot of advice and I didn't always follow it. Uh, probably, I could think of a couple things. One is to not, worry so much about money and material things. It's just, it's really the experiences you go through life and the relationships that are most important. And I think, as I've gotten older, I appreciate and engage with that advice more and more than I did perhaps when I was younger. So definitely the relationships and appreciating the experiences you have in life. It's the journey that we're on all together, not the destination. The destination can be whatever. It's a moving target. So enjoy every day that you have. Enjoy your family. Enjoy. Take time to smell the roses, so to speak. listen to music, enjoy friends, enjoy nature, and it's gonna really help you be a happier and healthier person.
I think that's great advice. I think it's so true that you have to have a destination, you have to have a plan in order to get there, to get wherever it is you're trying to go. But at the same time, you do have to understand that the journey is just as important as the finish line.
That's right.
Really, how you live it, especially, and hopefully you're having some fun. Sounds like you are.
If you're not having fun, then why in the heck are you doing it?
Well, sometimes I don't know. I meet a few people sometimes that don't look like they have enough fun in their life. So
Right. Well, I've been in that, situation, so I appreciate it. Sometimes it takes us a little while to, shake out of it.
yeah, I mean, no matter what's going on in your life, you can find some humor and giggle at something,
Giggle
right?
it. I
Put a
love
little
that.
giggle in your life.
I'm gonna go giggle it.
Well, what is? Can you share a personal habit that you do every day that kind of contributes to your success that you'd like to share?
Sure. I make a list every day, typically the night before, of, what I want to accomplish the next day. Speaking of a plan, I try to plan, just, a little bullet list of items I want to knock off. I may not get to everyone, but by having that, I have something. Number one, I don't forget, sometimes we get to the end of the day and like, oh, crap, the one thing I really wanted to get done, I totally forgot about it. But if I had it on a list, at least, if I refer back to the list, a couple times a day, I won't miss that one or two things that I really wanted to get done. Instead, I'm doing the three other things that really weren't as important. I think that's low hanging fruit. They tell you in the morning you should work on the most important thing on your list, the one that you really need to get done. The other stuff, the easy stuff, you'll get to that, but don't put off the thing that you're really trying to get done.
Yeah, I think that's really, really solid advice because if you just make a list and you don't prioritize, I use the star system. Like if it's something has 3 stars, I got to start with that, then 2 stars, then 1 star, and then no stars. Then the no stars never seem to get done.
Right, like, why is that even on the
I
list,
mean,
right?
well, they just kind of keep getting put on the list somewhere down there, but it just never tends to
Right,
happen.
right. I saw an interesting quote from Steve Jobs. It was probably from 20 years ago when he came back to Apple, and people asked him, well, what was the big change that he did? So he said, well, when he came back to Apple, there were actually about 400 products under development. And he took that list of 400 products and he cut it down to four. He said, if we can do these four things great, and one of them was the iMac, then we'll be successful. So focus on less things, put more time and more focus on less things and make them successful. Then you'll get to do some of the other things, that you have, down lower, the 1 and 2 stars, even maybe the no stars.
Well, that's great advice. All right, my last question for you is besides how do we find you is I like to ask people if they read a lot or they don't read a lot, is there a book that you would recommend besides your book? Because I want people to check your book out absolutely. And can they buy it on Amazon, the 88 plus ways music can change your
Yes.
life?
Yes, it's available on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble website, Books a Million as
Cool.
well.
Do you have another book that you would recommend that is one of your favorites?
Oh, absolutely. It's one that my kids refer to as my Bible, and the author of the book as my I'm putting up in quotes, my savior, my Jesus, because of so many times I quote the book and they're like, Dad, is that from that book again? And, you're probably familiar with the book. It's written by none other than Jack Canfield, and the book is The Success Principles.
Awesome.
He has like I think 64 different principles or so in there. And you read through that book, there's a lot of great anecdotes, stories that relate and make the principles come to life and really appreciate where they're coming from. And you'll go through it and you'll be like, I know when I started going through it the first time, I'm like, well, this one's really good. And back when I was actually having some success at something, it's because I was doing this one, and now I'm not. Uh, so it really helps you just so many different things, aspects of your life, whether it's your career, your family, relationships, money, charitable things. It just really helps put so many things in perspective and will help guide you to be successful and happy in whatever you want to do. And so to me, that is kind of like my life Bible, not my religious Bible, but my, my life Bible, and how to try to be successful and happy in life.
Well, I couldn't think of a better book myself. That's a terrific book. Everybody should read that book. The Success Principles by Jack Canfield is just awesome. It really. I know a lot of realtors that we've done mastermind groups among whole groups of realtors that do it as a mastermind
Uh-huh.
a group together and go over that whole book. So it's just really
Yeah, I'm
something
not,
everybody could read.
yeah, I'm not surprised. It really helps, individuals and groups be more successful.
Well, tell us how everybody can find you, find your all your social media and your book and so forth.
Well,
Website.
well, to find out about the Keep Music Alive, which is now a 501c3 nonprofit, we just finally got confirmed for that. They can reach us there at keepmusicalive.org. And then for the book, they can find that at 88waysmusic.com. So the number 88 and then waysmusic.com. And of course, it's available on, Amazon and the other websites. 88 plus ways music can change your life.
Well, that's I just want to thank you so much, Vincent, for being interviewed, for coming on my show and sharing so much with all of us. And I just want to commend what you're doing. You have such a quiet joy about you, and it must be music. I don't know if that's why, but you certainly.
I think so.
I
Thank
love
you.
it that you're spreading that message, and anything that that I can ever do to help, let me know. But I really do appreciate all the work that you're doing and the fact that you came on today.
Oh, thank you so much, Patty, for allowing us to share our message, with your listeners. We really appreciate it and love what you're doing and reaching out and putting so many positive messages out into the world.
Well, thank you so much, and
You're welcome.
I'll see you soon. I'm gonna.
All righty, Patty. Have
Okay,
a good